Okay, guys. All right. Hey, guys. Guys. Focus. What? I want you to pay attention. Okay, we need to factor. How am I going to factor? What do I got to do first? Get an 8 on the same side. So I'm going to write x squared minus 7x minus 8 equals 0. So subtract 8 over, yeah? Okay, factoring is find the factors of what term? Negative 8. So find the factors of negative 8. That add up to what? Negative 7. Factors of 8 are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. 1 and 8. Which one gives me negative 7? Negative 8, positive 1, right? So what do I write? X plus 1, x minus 8 equals 0, right? Am I done? I asked you to solve. Right. Give me the answers that make this 0, negative 1 and positive 8. And there we go. Okay? Huh? Huh? I can't hear you because people keep talking. What? No, they cannot hear you. The microphone is small. It's right here. They can just really hear me. So, you're fine. They might hear that. Okay. All right. So, what about this one? What do you want to do? Get everything on the same side, right? If I add 7v, guys, if I add 7v, where do you put it? I know, but where? In the middle. Guys. So v squared, what? Plus 7v plus 10 equals 0. And then I want to what? Find the factors of 10. That add up to 7? The only factors of 10 are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. Something in 2 and 5, are they both positive or both negative? Both positive. So I'm going to say v plus 2 and v plus 5 equals 0, yeah? So, what does that mean? This equals 0 when v equals negative 2 and negative 5. Christian, where's your review? Get it out. Okay. Solve each equation with the quadratic formula. Do you remember what the quadratic formula is? Okay, so if I'm solving ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, if I'm trying to solve that equation, then it's x equals. Say it out loud. And there you go. So, in this problem right here, what's A? A is 1. What's B? And C? Okay. So if I'm trying to solve this one, then A is 1, B is negative 9, C is negative 22. All right, so now I just really need to fill in the formula, yeah? Okay. X equals opposite B, positive 9, plus or minus the square root of B squared. I'm going to go ahead and put negative 9 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. Okay. What you cannot forget are these negatives and then what they do. If you go ahead and just take your calculator and type in this part right here, exactly as you see it, you'll get the correct answer underneath there. One way you can get away without doing that is a negative squared is always what? Positive. So you could just say, what's 9 squared? 81. So you could say 81 minus 4 times 1 times a negative 22. Well, a negative times a negative is a positive, so you're going to end up with a positive under here. So if I do this, not with that one. No, we'll get there. So what I would do is I would just type in negative 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 22. I don't need parentheses around these. As long as you do the times, you're fine. And you get 169, yeah? So I've got 9 plus or minus the square root of 169 over 2. Is there a square root of 169? You always check, okay? So if it is, then there's 13. So 9 plus or minus 13 over 2. Am I done? You actually need to tell me what 9 plus 13 is and what 9 minus 13 is, right? So 9 plus 13 divided by 2, 9 minus 13 divided by 2. 9 plus 13 is what? 22. 22 divided by 2 is 11. 9 minus 13? Negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2? So I've got two answers. Now, one person went ahead and they saw this problem and they automatically thought, well, the factors of 22 are 11 and 2, so minus 11, positive 2, so my answers are positive 11 and negative 2. I mean, it factors, right? And that's nice, but if I'm asking you to solve with quadratic formula, you'd only get the points for the answer. It's called reading the directions. Well, I just told you what I want, so you can do whatever you want. Alright, so now let's do this one. What's A? What's B? What's C? Negative 14? So let's solve quadratic formula. X equals what? Opposite B, 8, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. Okay, what are you going to do at this point, guys? Type in the center? Okay, so I'm going to type in negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 14, and I get 120. 8 plus or minus the square root of 120 divided by 2. Yeah? Okay, guys. Is 120 a perfect square? Look at the whiteboard right there. You don't see 120, right? But I can see if any of these go into it, right? Okay, the largest one, 121, I'm pointing at it. That doesn't go into it. 100 doesn't go into it. 81 does not go into 120. 64 does not. I could try 49, but I'm thinking no. So, has anyone tried 36? So you just divide? So 120 divided by, I know 25 doesn't go into it because 125, so I'm thinking I'm going to try 16. 120 divided by 16. If it works, great. If it doesn't, okay, it doesn't work, right? Does it divide by 9? Nope. Does it divide by 4? Okay. So here's what I know. 120 is the same thing as saying 4 times 30. How can I use that? Square root of 4 is what? So 8 plus or minus 2 square roots of 30 over 2. Now, guys, some of you might have tried to divide 8 by 2 at the beginning, and you would have had just a 4 up here without that, and that would have made it wrong. The only time you can divide by 2 is if both of these are divisible by 2. Are both 8 and 2 divisible by 2? So 4, 1, 1. So my final answer is 4 plus or minus the square root of 30 over 1. Brittany, we're just working on the review, so if you go and get it out. Okay. Okay, what about number 5? Same deal? What's A? What's B? What's C? Okay. M equals. Opposite B, positive 5, plus or minus the square root of B squared, minus 4 times A. Where? Oh, okay. Oh, because my hand? Oh, because, yeah, my hand. Okay. Okay. I'll try and keep my hand a little bit further out. There we go. So, minus 4 times A times C. 3. Does that help? Okay, and then 2 times A. 7. Okay. What are you going to type in? What's underneath the square root? So I'm going to type in negative 5 squared minus 4 times 7 times 3. I get negative 59. So here's what I've got. 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 59 over 14. Okay, so what are you going to do? Take the imaginary out. If you have a negative underneath the square root, that's where the negative comes out, and we put a what? I. So I'm really just saying 5 plus or minus the square root of 59, I on the outside, over 14. Is it okay if I is put in the front of the square root? That's actually fine. I tend to put it on the back, but that's okay. Okay. Is there a perfect square that goes into 59? Right. I mean, I could try and divide. 59 divided by 4. 59 divided by 9. 59 divided by 16. It's not going to work. 59 divided by... Yeah. So we're good. Okay. So now let's do 6, yeah? Was it the answer? What's A in this one? What's A on this one? A is 1. What's B? And C? Negative 96? Okay, so R equals opposite B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. Okay, so let's fill in. Come on. Where did we go before you got here, huh? Go. 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 96. 400? So negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 400 divided by 2. Should I check to see if 400 is a perfect square? Yes? Yes? No? Hello? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and check it. Is it? Alright, so I'm going to write negative 4 plus or minus 20 over 2. Am I done? I need to simplify. Negative 4 plus 20 over 2, negative 4 minus 20 over 2. What's negative 4 plus 20? What's 20 minus 4? 16 divided by 2 is 8. Negative 4 and negative 20? Negative 24 divided by 2? Negative 12. And there we go. 8 and negative 12. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, number 7. Do you remember the steps to do number 7? Okay. So the first thing I want to do So step one. First, I'm going to go to mode. I'm going to make sure my stat diagnostics are on. Okay. Mode is right here. I'm going to go up to stat diagnostics. Okay. Mine are already highlighted on, so I'm good. If not, you press enter and then save and quit. Okay, how do I enter my data? Stat, edit. Okay, so stat, edit is the first one, yeah? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just, if you press stat, and you press enter, you're on edit, right? Okay. Can someone read off the X's for me? Okay, what about the Y's? That was a negative 10, right? And then what? Okay. So I've got my data in there. Now it says calculate the cubic and quartic regressions for the given set of data and state the R-squared for each. Decide which type of function best fits the data, then find f of -4. Okay, so I'm going to write down, I've entered my data, and I want to calculate. So I go to stat what? Calculate. Okay, so I'm going to go to the right. And I want to do the cubic regression, so number 6 is cubic regression, right? I press enter. If I want to store in my y1 under store regression equation, where do I go? To store in y1, go to alpha trace. Okay, so alpha trace y1, press enter, and enter. What do you not like? What do you not like? Okay. Is that what you got? Okay. What's the R-squared on the cubic one? R-squared? 0.819? No, not what you got. Okay. How do I write this function down, guys? How do you write the function down? -0.47x what? Cubed minus 1.27x squared? Yeah. Plus 0.71x. I rounded. And then minus 4.29. But if you have it on your own screen, then you can read it up there, right? It says find the cubic. I'm going to go ahead and write them down. What's R squared? 0.819? Okay, I like 3 decimals for that one. Okay. Now I want to calculate the what? The what? Quartic? So stat, calculate quartic. So I'm going to go to quartic. I like the r squared to be 3, because sometimes when you round, they're very close to each other. Sometimes they look like the same. I'm going to put this in y2. Okay, so I stored this in a y2. Let's go ahead and write down the equation. Okay. So the equation is y equals what? 0.18 x to the what? Point 18 x to the fourth plus 0.51 x cubed minus 1.54 x squared minus 3.23. Please stop whispering so much. Minus 4.48. I should hope that you're just doing this with me. R squared is what? 0.861 or 862 if you round. Okay, which one has the better fit? The 0.862, right? The quartic? Okay. Okay. Taylor, go ahead and face forward. Brock, go ahead and sit at the table with Taylor. We don't all need to be sitting at that table. Now, I have 2 equations. This one fits better. So I have to indicate that. This is a better fit. And then it asks me to use that to find f of negative 4. How do I find f of negative 4? Okay, you can either look at your table, or you can plug it in your equation. If you forgot to put it in y equals, then you don't want to have to type that into y equals. I already have this equation right here in y2. So my y2 is going to correspond to this one. If you don't have it in your y equals, then that's okay. You can just type this whole thing in your calculator with, instead of an x, put a negative 4. But since I have it in my table, I'm going to go second table. And I'm not going to look at, I'm not going to look at y1, I'm going to look at y2, because that one was the one that had the better fit. So my answer is negative 3.60, or 61, right? So f of negative 4 equals negative 3.61. Okay. It does say thousands though, doesn't it? Tens, hundred, thousand. So 606. Okay. Now let's talk about simplifying. Okay, number 8. How do I simplify this? Well, what do you think you can add? Can you add the 4 and the 7i, or can you add 4 and negative 5? 4 and negative 5. Add real with real and imaginary with imaginary. What's 4 plus a negative 5? Negative 1. What's a 7i and a positive 5i? 12i. And that's it. Okay, so I added them. I added real with real and imaginary with imaginary. What do you need to think about on this one? How is this one a little bit different? Yeah, you have to think about minusing everything. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. Negative 6 minus I minus 1, and then what? Plus 5i. Perfect. So I've got a negative 6 and a negative 1, which is a what? Negative 7. And I've got a negative I and a positive 5i. Positive 4i. There you go. Okay. When I'm multiplying, you have to remember what is I? I is the square root of what? What would you tell me this is? Negative 5? Not negative 5. What's the square root of 25? What do you have to do when you have a negative in the square root? Put an I. Because this is the same thing as saying 25 times negative 1. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of negative 1 is I. So I is the square root of negative 1. Well, now you do. What happens when I multiply I times I? What's that? Well, what's I times I? I squared? Well, didn't we say I is the square root of negative 1? Right, because the square root of negative 1 squared is just negative 1. So, here's what I need to know. When I multiply an I times an I, just think negative 1. Okay? Or I squared is negative 1. So, let's multiply this out. What do I have to do with these? What do you have to do, guys? 4. Oh, multiply. 7 times a negative 8. If you don't know it, type it in. Negative 56. 7 times 6i. 42i. Negative 8i and negative 8. Positive 64i, and then negative 8i and positive 6i. Negative 48i to the second. Okay? So here's what we got. These both have an I in them, one I, right? So I can add those two together. That's 106i. What did we say to do when you have an I squared? I squared, we said, is? I squared is negative 1. So I'm going to cross out the I squared and just change the sign. If it's negative, make it positive. If it's positive, make it negative. So that just becomes a positive 48. So I've got a positive 48 and a negative 56. Can I combine those? Okay. I'm thinking negative 8. I'm going to put that in front because it's got the real part. And there we go. Well, these two combine to that one. And then anytime you have an I squared is just a negative 1. So I just made that a positive 48, and negative 56 and positive 48 is negative 8. Okay? So we'll do it again right here. Okay, so on number 11, what is squaring something the same thing as? I mean, assuming you're saying 1 minus 2i times what? 1 minus 2i. You're multiplying it by itself. So same process as last time? I'm going to follow that. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times negative 2i? Negative 2i. Now I'm going to distribute the negative 2i. Negative 2i times 1 is negative 2i. That's a negative 2i times a negative 2i. Well, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4 I squared. And what do we say to do when you see I squared? And switch the sign. So that becomes a negative 4. So I've got 1 minus 4. 1 and negative 4 is negative 3, right? And then I've got a negative 2i and a negative 2i. Negative 4i. So my answer is negative 3 minus 4i. Okay. What about 8 over 10i? Here's the thing. When you're talking about imaginary numbers, we don't like having imaginary numbers in the denominator. So I know that when I multiply by I times I becomes a negative 1. It goes away. So all you need to remember to do on this is multiply top and bottom by I. What does the numerator become? 8i. The denominator becomes 10i squared, but what did we say I squared was? Negative 1? So I'm just going to cross it out and put a negative. So if I've got 8 divided by negative 10, what can I do with a negative? We never really leave a negative in the denominator. So I float it up to the top, or in the middle. Does 8 and 10 simplify? Do 8 and 10 simplify? To what? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the 8 and the 10 can simplify. You just got to leave the I on the top. Yeah. So what are you going to do on number 13? Multiply by I. So what am I left with on top? And on the bottom? Yeah, negative 4i squared, and we said mark out the I squared and make it what? Positive 1. So I've got 9i over 4, and there you go. Nothing to simplify because 9 and 4 don't simplify, right? Okay. As far as we can. Huh? Well, my plan is to do that, but you guys aren't. Some of you are going along with me, and otherwise, I don't know. If we don't go faster, we might not get through it. Okay. What do you want to combine? We're just adding, right? So what can you combine? Like terms. So negative 6r squared with what? 2r squared. What's a negative 6 and a positive 2? So negative 4r squared. What else can combine? 4r and 7r, which is what? 11r. And then lastly, 3 and negative 2, so positive 1. Is that it? Alright. What do you have to remember to do first here? Right. So I'm going to write negative 4x squared plus x cubed plus 2x to the 4th, and then what? Plus 3x squared, and then what? 4x to the 4th, and then minus? Because you have to distribute the negative, right? So I'm looking for like terms. What should you go with first? The 4s? So 2x to the 4th and 4x to the 4th is? Okay. Okay, what about 3? So I've got 1x cubed and negative 5x cubed. Negative 4x cubed. And then negative 4x squared and positive 3x squared. Negative 1x squared. Okay. Have you already done 16 and 17? Okay, I'm going to do them. Huh? Okay, so this is just foiling again, right? So I'll just do it really quickly. 4r squared plus 14r plus 16r plus 56. Combine the middle two terms. 4r squared plus 30r plus 56, yeah? Okay. Same deal on this one? Okay, so negative 48x squared, and then minus 24x plus 30x plus 15. So negative 48x squared plus 6x plus 15. Okay, what's different about this one? The second one has 3 terms. Can you still do it? Yeah. You should remember to distribute all of these to all 3. So first I'm going to distribute 5v to all 3, right? So 5v to v squared is what? 5v cubed. 5v to 2v is 10v squared. 5v to 2 is just 10v. Now what do I need to distribute? The 6. Okay. 6 times v squared. And I'm gonna stack it underneath the already v squared that we have. 6 times 2v is 12v. 6 times 2 is 12. Add, and I've got 5v cubed plus 16v squared plus 22v plus 12. Okay, let's factor. Okay, how do we factor this? Okay, what did you say we had to do yesterday? Okay. So we're going to factor by grouping. I'm going to group the first 2. and group the last two. Take the negative with the 4 and put a plus sign in between them. Okay? So what can you factor out of these two terms? X squared? What are you left with? X minus 4. What can you factor out of negative 4 and positive 16? I'm going to factor out a negative 4. And then I'm left with a positive x and a negative 4. Because 16 divided by negative 4 is negative 4, right? Now, if these aren't the same, then I did something wrong. Or it doesn't factor. Since they are the same, I write down one of those. And then I'm left with x squared minus 4. Yeah? Am I done? Right, x squared minus 4 is the difference of perfect squares, so it factors again. Perfect. X plus 2, x minus 2. And there we go. If I asked you to solve this, what would you say the answers are? And there you go. Okay. So then let's do number 20. Same deal? Group the first two, group the last two. Plus sign. What can you factor out of the first two? X squared? What are you left with? X plus 4. What can you factor out of the last two? What are you left with? X, and negative 8 divided by negative 2 is positive 4. So I'm left with x plus 4, because they're the same, and then what? X squared minus 2. Is this a difference of perfect squares? No, I mean, you could write this. You don't have to. I'm just telling you that you can. You know how with the 4 we wrote 2 and 2? Well, you could put square root of 2 and minus square root of 2. But you don't have to. So if it's not a difference of perfect squares, you can just quit right there. Okay? But if I asked you to solve, you could say x plus 4 equals 0 when x equals negative 4. And x squared minus 2 equals 0, well, I'm going to add 2 and take the square root. And when you take the square root, there's two answers, plus or minus the square root. Okay? Divide. Do you remember how to do synthetic division? Mm-hmm. So, okay, what goes in the box? 10, positive 10. Whatever that is, do the opposite. Okay, what goes across the top? 1, negative 18, and, okay. Bring down the what? The 1, and then we what? Okay, 10 times 1 is? Put my answer there and add. Negative 18 and 10? Negative 8. And then I multiply again. 10 times a negative 8 is? Negative 80. Negative 80 and 77 is a negative 3. 10 times a negative 3 is a negative 30. Add and I get 5. So my answer, if I started with a cubic function, then I'm going to end up with a quadratic. So 1v squared minus 8v minus 3 plus 5 divided by whatever you divided by, v minus 10. And that would be my final answer. Right, so whatever you divided by. Okay, so 22. What are you going to put up in negative 1, the opposite of this? And I put across the top 1, 11, 6, negative 8, 5, and 1. Okay, bring down the 1. Negative 1 times 1 is? And add them up and you get 10. Negative 1 times 10 is? Add them up and I get? Multiply and I get? Add and I get? Multiply and I positive 4. 9. Negative 9 and negative 8. Okay, I started with a quintic function, so I should end up with a quartic. So 1p to the 4th plus 10p cubed minus 4p squared minus 4p plus 9, and then what? There you go. Minus 8 over b plus y. Okay. So do we know what to do on 23 then? What goes in the... Yep. It's okay if you put a plus and a negative. So you could put plus a negative 8 over that, or you could say minus 8. Because it's a negative 8. If it's a negative 8, honey, I can either say minus 8 over the remainder or plus a negative 8 over the remainder. Not the remainder, over what we divided by. What goes in 23? Negative 6. And then across the top, 1, negative 2, negative 44, 22, and negative 2. Bring down the 1 and I've got, add and I get, multiply and I get positive 48, add and I get positive 4. Multiply and I get negative 24, add and I get negative 2, multiply and I get positive 12, add and I get positive 10. I started with a quartic, so I should end up with a cubic function. So 1x cubed minus 8x squared plus 4x minus 2 plus 10 over x plus 6. Okay. So, what goes in here? Negative 10. 9, 83, negative 61, 98, and 80. What if there had been a missing term? What if there hadn't been a quadratic term? You have to put a 0 in its place. So be careful. Sometimes that happens. Okay. Bring down the 9 and multiply. Negative 90. Add negative 7. Negative 7 times a negative 10 is a positive 70. And add negative a positive 9. Okay, when I multiply, I get negative 90, add negative 8. 8 times a negative 10 is with a remainder of 0. Okay, I started with a quartic, I should end up with a cubic. So I've got 9x cubed minus 7x squared plus 9x plus 8 with no remainder. Okay, I say we do 25 and 26 and call it a period. Okay? Determine the zeros and their multiplicities, and then determine the behavior, meaning does it bounce or does it cross. Just right quick as a little reminder, if you have a linear function, y equals 2x, doesn't that just kind of go straight through the x-axis? Actually goes to the origin, but whatever. What if you have y equals x squared? Isn't that a parabola that bounces off? Okay. The power is odd, we cross. The power is even, we bounce. So right here, what's the 0 here? What makes it 0? With a multiplicity of, because of the power, which means it bounces. If it's even, it bounces. What's the 0 here? 1 with a multiplicity of 1. Sorry, I don't know why I'm writing it up in the power. That's just a multiplicity of 2. Okay. If it's odd, then it crosses. Okay, how do you figure out this one? Yeah, put the 4 underneath there, and then the opposite of negative 3/4 is positive 3/4. Multiplicity of 15, that's odd, so it crosses. Okay. So let's do this one. What makes that 0 right there? Guys, what do I plug in there that makes it 0? Think about 5 times what gives me 0? 0. So 0 the multiplicity of, which means it, because it's even. And this one right here, 8 with a multiplicity of, which means it crosses. And then the last one, right, put the 3 under here. Opposite of positive 10 thirds is negative 10 thirds with a multiplicity of, which means it, okay.